Okay, Doug, you can start the meeting. Welcome to the Parks and Recreation meeting. I'm going to give the meeting to Doug, the chair, to get started.
Thank you, Monica, and welcome to the November 2020 meeting of the Lower Makefield Township Park and Rec Committee. In attendance tonight, we have Supervisor Liaison James McCartney, Board Member Michael Bundy, Board Member Michael Brody, Board Member Kim Rock, and myself, Doug Kraus. We also have Jim Majewski on the line. Our first order of business is the approval of the October 13th, 2020 Lower Makefield Township Park and Rec meeting minutes. Do anybody have any comments, changes on the meeting minutes? If there are not any changes, then if I could hear a motion to approve the October 13th, 2020 meeting minutes.
Motion to approve the October meeting minutes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we've got approval of the October 13th, 2020 minutes. Our next agenda item is an update on our CAPRA accreditation. At the last meeting, we identified different subcommittees to address the different sections that Monica had asked us to provide some assistance on. So I know there's myself, Kim, and David as one group. Michael, I know, and Dennis are another group, and then Mike Bundy, you're paired with Trish, correct? Hi, Trish.
Correct.
Hello.
And I see David's on the line as well, Malinowski. So we're just missing, I think, Dennis at the moment. So Mike and Trish, I don't know if you're prepared to give an update. We can just do a round robin real quick and go through the updates. Just give us a top line of kind of anything that you've done since we last met in October.
Yeah, so thanks, Doug. We did get started. We did some preliminary work in investigating the user groups, who they are. But beyond that, we really haven't gotten into it yet.
All right. Thank you. Kim, do you want to give an update for our group?
Yeah. So we all met once, kind of came up with an initial plan. I then had a call with Monica, and right now we're just kind of going over what the township currently does in terms of our section which is health and wellness. So we have a list now of what the township currently does, and then we will all be meeting again to make sure that list is final, make sure there's no gaps, and then also looking at what, things we're not currently doing that we could be doing and taking that one step further.
Great. Thank you, Kim. Mike Brody, I know you're in transit. I don't know if you want to give your update for you and Dennis.
Yeah, I think I can give a quick one. We've had two meetings. One, me, Dennis, and Monica, and then the second one, just Dennis and I. We've been sort of identifying and trying to figure out how to tackle the first 10-1. And we're going to have another call this week with Monica. It's a big undertaking. This piece of it. I think they're all big undertakings, but it's the big undertaking. This piece of it. So we're still kind of working through the beginning stages. I think that's good.
Great. Thanks for the update. So I'm glad everybody had an opportunity to meet at least once since we've assigned the different subcommittees. So I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your busy schedule to do that. And again, if there's any issues or challenges, just make sure you raise those sooner than later to Monica so that, we can stay on top of it and deliver what she's requesting in the timeline identified. So Monica, I don't know if you have any questions for any of us, since we've all met at least once, right?
I've been in touch with everybody. I'm also, we're going to have interns on board that I hope can help you, assist you through the process. So if you do need assistance in that way, we need to determine something that you think the interns would be helpful with. That'd be great. I'm also going to have them working on other pieces of the document as they're here for a few months, just like the risk management interns did. So that's really my update. But and we'll also, yes.
Would you want to talk about that now, or would you want to talk about that offline? I would think that maybe would be a good, because if so, maybe we can schedule us like an offline convo. I think we could use a little assistance. That's why I ask.
I think we could definitely discuss it offline. Kind of come up with real meat of what you need help with. Versus
Sounds great.
Have that conversation with.
Sounds
you.
great.
Okay.
Sounds great. Thanks, Monica.
No problem.
The second part, Monica, I don't know if you want to take the lead on this, but is to the Parks and Recreation Risk Management Plan and motion to recommend. That was part 2. So, that was a 25-page document that we shared with the group. And I don't know if there are specific highlights or anything that that need to be called out on this document.
I can kind of briefly touch on some things. We had the interns in to kind of review some of our risk protocols. And, we do have to overall township risk management things, but we needed something a little bit more specific that we could use internally for training or things that we can refer to for, camps, the pool, all the things. So that's why we pulled this together using a lot of other area documents. I have to say our insurer helped us a lot, DVIT. They went over our document. They gave us a lot of edits. We also worked with the chief, and the chief reviewed the documents and approved them. They had a legal review. So it is very comprehensive, but it also gives us a lot of help with our training so that trainees, new summer hires, everybody has access to the documents, who to call in case of emergency and that type of thing. If anybody has any questions about it, I'd be glad to answer them.
The only question I had as regards to this document, once it's approved, how will it be disseminated to the user groups, and what is the expectations from them, since obviously we don't have a lot of township employees, right? But a lot of the user groups are using township fields. So just, can you explain to the group on what the expectations are for them in terms of whether it's a general incident report and things like that? What's the expectations for the user groups?
Well, generally speaking, for the user groups, they would, really need to know how to tell us that there's a problem and report incidents. This is more of an internal document. We have 130 staff that we hire for the pool in the summer, and about 15 camp staff plus our internal staff. So it's a document that people can refer to, we can use for training purposes internally. And it's really the base for it. I think we need to have very clear on our township page how people can put in a report, for instance, whether it's a dog park, that type of thing. So all of this stuff you see in the appendix will be made public. Everything with CAPRA will be made public, as I said, very transparent. So as soon as it's approved, it will be made public as part of our CAPRA documentation. But the biggest thing is just knowing how to report. And I do have regular meetings with the league heads, and would be glad to review anything with them too as education piece.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good information in there. I'm not sure, what's been shared in the past, but going forward, what will be shared with them, and then what the expectations would be, right, in terms of reporting, incidents, since that would probably be the one that would be the most useful for them.
Sure. And the whole document I would share with them. I send that out to them just so they have it once it's approved.
So from us, you just need us to provide an approval to recommend this plan to the Board of Supervisors. So is there any public comment, any comment from any other board members?
I don't see any public comment.
Any comment from, so if someone wants to make a motion to approve, and then if there's any comment after that.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Any seconds?
We're gonna have discussion after this.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I second.
Any discussions on the motion?
Monica, I apologize. I know that you emailed these out, but I don't think I got this in my paper packet, so I didn't read this ahead of tonight. The risk document? I do remember the first time we went through this. This is like sort of the final version of the document from, call it, maybe our last in-person meeting even.
Yeah, this document hasn't been reviewed from the park board until now. It's
Did we get some sort of preview of this though?
I gave it to you a week ahead of the packets. Yes, I did.
That's the only one. Okay.
Yeah.
And then are we voting to implement this risk procedure plan, or what are we asking to get accomplished from this?
We're voting to implement this and make this a formal document.
All right. And does this have, I apologize. I hate to vote on it when I admittedly, I know I didn't read it tonight. I don't have it here in the packet. And does it still have, because I remember when the interns presented to us at that last meeting, that there was a moment, something in the pool section about no coolers, or is that in there as something to implement as a new rule?
This is not policies and procedures.
You remember that one?
It's not like policies of how we operate facilities. It's how we would react in the event of a incident.
Very good. All right. Well, then, all right. I apologize that. I apologize. But, okay, Doug, would you rather me to abstain from these then? Would we still be able to have the unanimous, enough of a vote to move forward with this if I abstained?
Yeah, there's enough members here that can vote.
I mean, I trust Monica. It would feel weird to vote on something I just didn't read it, and that's my apologies on that. But
that's fair. Any other comments?
If he hasn't had a chance to review it, can we vote on it and give him till tomorrow, or to have any comments to Monica? Does that seem fair?
I mean, it's fair procedurally. I don't know if we vote yes.
I would be comfortable with you guys voting, and I'll just raise any comments to Monica. Look, as I said, if you guys are willing to vote unanimously on it, there's very few things we've disagreed about in terms of me standing out by myself on a vote. So I have to assume that if unanimously you've all read through it and you feel comfortable with what's in there, I'd be surprised if there's anything that's groundbreaking that I would disagree with. But I think it's a matter of policy for myself. I would just feel more comfortable voting if I actually read it. But I'm happy to pass my comments along to Monica afterwards.
Okay.
All right. Are there any other comments among the board members? If not, if we want to take a vote, then to motion to recommend the Board of Supervisors and to the Parks and Recreation Risk Management Plan. All in favor, say aye.
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 Hi.
All opposed? All opposed. So Monica, the motion is approved to bring forth the risk management plan to the Board of Supervisors. Okay, the next agenda topic is our naming policy discussion. And that document, again, was included in your materials. And there was a original document that Dennis had originally communicated to the group, as well as a follow-up document with edits that Monica had made. in terms of, getting this more streamlined and actionable. So wanted to open this up for discussion. Obviously, the purpose here is to establish a uniform procedure for officially naming any parks, park facilities, open space, trails, and recreation areas. And that will ensure that our public amenities are easily identified and consistent with the character and values of Lower Makefield Township. So the objectives, obviously, the document was to provide clear, simple, standard processes for considering names for public parks and facilities, provide the guidelines for naming considerations to ensure that the names will best serve the purpose of the township, keep an historical record for names, parks, and facilities, and consistency to the naming process. So I want to open this up for discussion. Monica, I don't know if you wanted to just talk a little bit about what parts that you kind of added in here, just so we have some clarity around what your edits were.
Sure.
Do we need to make a motion first or no?
We're just,
I guess not for Monica to talk. Sorry, being quiet.
I think, go ahead, Monica.
I mean, it's up to you. We had this on the agenda as a discussion item, not necessarily a motion. So I don't know how you would like to handle it, Doug, to be honest. It's up to you.
Well, we're not necessarily approving this right yet, right? It's just a review of the document and the policy. We've taken this up a couple of times and wanted to see if we were to move this thing forward and continue to address, this policy for the township in terms of naming of facilities, identifying the process, and just identifying what any exceptions could be, what exclusions would be, and if we feel that this document's in a good place, then we could make a motion and present it to the board. If we still feel that we want to table it and move it to a further out and have people edit it and make additional comments back, we can do that. But this I think is a good opportunity to kind of address some of this opportunity that's kind of been lingering out there with regards to providing any direction if any future parks or people do want to name something. So
Is Dennis on tonight?
he is.
Okay, good. Because I wouldn't want to take any action because I know this has been his little project. So I wouldn't want to take any action if he wasn't here to comment.
I'm here, Trish.
Great. I can't see you though.
You're lucky.
So Monica, I don't know if you just want to comment on some of the things you modified from Dennis's document, just so.
Sure. I really just kind of cleaned it up and added things where things were a little bit of a question to me how we would do it. I think I added, I'm trying to remember myself, to be honest, like things that would be considered as a qualifying name, how the process would work internally for us. I cleaned that up just so it was very easy and clear for us to follow. And then what people can expect in procedures. And I think I also added some exclusions and signage. Oh no, signage was already there. Yeah, I think that was it that I added. It's more about procedure and how we're going to operate internally. And then just some of the other wording throughout. Just clean some things up. That's it.
And the one question I did have, let me just see if this was in here. So. Okay, so So it would be submitted to you, right, director, with whatever the formal application is, right?
Yes.
And that would come to the Park and Rec Board to address the criteria, right?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And then that would go then to the Board of Supervisors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Monica, I have a question. Maybe I just didn't see it, but do we say in here that the person has to be either a past or present resident of Lower Makefield, or?
I think we do clarify that. I just need to find it. I apologize. Outstanding. Someone who has had outstanding accomplishments by an individual for the good of the community. Individual.
Yeah, but I didn't see anywhere where they specifically have to be a resident. And I feel like, I personally think that should be something that we should add.
Sure.
I don't know if everybody agrees, but I mean, there could be instances where we would want to name something, but I feel like, these are township facilities, township funds. I think they should, at a minimum, be a requirement that at some point they were a resident of Lower Makefield.
Well, so we have the wording, an individual or organization that contributed significantly to the acquisition or development of a park or facility.
Yeah,
Right, but that doesn't say
think,
that they're a resident. It could be anybody.
I would think if somebody wasn't a resident but wanted to give us $10 million for the Snipes Ballpark and Library Foundation, that we would consider that a sizable interest into the township, that we would want to consider allowing naming rights in that scenario.
Yeah, but I think that could be as an exception. I feel like we should have that written, that they should be a resident.
Okay.
Trish, I respectfully disagree that they have to be a resident for a lot of the same logic that Brody was talking about, but it can be implied that, resident, I don't know how we do that, but maybe a little bit of noodling would clarify it. But, maybe there's just something that says if the name of the person or the person is not a resident, it would, have to go through another level of scrutiny or something. But
Yeah, what if they were just affiliated with the township? Like, I'm thinking, what if we had an amazing police chief or, someone that didn't live there but worked there or had some kind of affiliation that they wanted to name it after?
Sure.
And I think there's examples, or, whether it's in Stoddard, I don't know where those individuals live, but obviously given some of our leagues and organization cross boundaries that go both in and out of the township, but they could give a lot of time and effort to Lower Makefield. And I think an example is whether it's the police chief or somebody like Monica who doesn't, people just, they live in other places, but they might give a lot of time and effort back to the township and develop the township. So I'm not saying they have to be a resident.
I just think it should be a little bit more clearly defined if we want to say, work. But honestly, somebody who doesn't live in the township or work for the township is not, I can't see how they would be invested necessarily in our township. Why would they be doing it in their township? I just feel like the wording should be just a little bit tighter, in my opinion.
What if we did preference will be given to residents or something like that?
Sure.
Yeah. Good.
So is that good wording?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any other questions?
I had a few thoughts, questions. Monica, on page 2 under naming process, on the 4th bullet point, the last sentence, supervisors should be capitalized. Sorry, I caught that one.
That's good. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then on the next one down after supervisors, I think a comma would be good there. Okay. Otherwise, there's just jumped out at me when I was reading it. James, Supervisor McCartney, James, hi, how are you? You guys named the silt pond recently. obviously, you didn't have a naming convention for that. When I consider that naming, I think that you could probably justify it under the reasoning with which you guys did that naming. I'm curious, when you read this, would you have, I mean, knowing you supported that naming, but would you have felt better about that naming, having this policy in place? I'd be curious to know, like, feedback of your thought of this policy, both just in concept and in its actual form.
No, I mean, I think in concept it's good. I think some of the points that Patricia's made, as far as people actively being part of the community, or even living in the community. But like anything else, there's going to be exceptions, like you said.
Yeah.
If somebody donates 10 million to the township, and I'm pretty sure we're going to name everything after them.
Yeah.
But it's also, you want to make sure that you're not doing away with the people that are actually putting the work in.
Yeah. Do we think there'd be benefit to adding something along the lines of like some degree of community support for this? So maybe like you have to also have 100 signatures of residents, or like, or proof via a change.org. Anything to support it or not?
Brody, in the agreement, in the description here, I think it says that someone recommending it has to bring rationale to the director.
So it should be big enough that you won't need those 100 signatures because we'd all know about it, essentially.
I think you're asking somebody to do a lot of work when they're bringing something to us unnecessarily.
Yeah, there's a lot in the first page. It says request for renaming parks and recreation facilities. There's a bunch of stuff that they have to bring initially to the table before you're going to get a little bit of a packet almost.
Yeah, as I think you should. I mean, it's a big. It's a big deal, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. I don't think it really stops you from doing much, but I think it gives at least a guideline. I think if anything, the question is, do you want more meat to the bones to?
So Brody, when we put this together originally, it was intended to be just that, guidelines. The idea was to have some structure so that there was some semblance of thought behind the naming. And then ultimately the Board of Supervisors has the authority to accept or reject them. So there's nothing that I think we avoided getting so explicit that if someone followed everything, it was a slam dunk. It still was up to the supervisors in the end to agree that it makes sense. Monica, one comment on the exclusion section. I think the first 3 or 4 bullets in there are truly exclusions. I think the rest of the stuff is more process and probably belongs somewhere else in the document.
Okay. The first 3?
The first 3 are exclusions. Maybe the 4th one just talks about this might be fine too, because, the 4th is process. So the first 3 are exclusions and the rest are process. Just to keep it clean. Exclusions are just identify what those are so people know.
Yep.
So Monica, if we approve this, then does the Board of Supervisors have to approve this, or they would ultimately be approving this policy too, right?
Yeah, I believe it'd probably be best if they did approve this policy. If this is how we're decision making to send something to them, I think ultimately they should decide whether they agree.
Well, couldn't they actually adopt this into the township rules and regulations?
They could. They could. Now, what I'm also coming up with a comprehensive parks and recreation policy. We could put this in the policy and bring the whole thing to the board as a packet. You know what I mean? So it's up to you how you want to do it, but we could do it either way.
I think it's best to put it in the whole packet.
That makes sense. Put it in the whole packet and do everything at once.
In the document, Monica, I didn't see anything as related to cost of signage, but just for clarity purposes, would it be, I assume the township will bear all costs, right? So just so that people are applying, or they're not under the impression that they will have to pay for the signage.
I guess it depends on what the signage is.
Well, if they give $10 million, they're going to take it out of the $10 million, but I'm just more for purposes of, for the application, right? Unless, we're not asking for an application fee. We're not, and we're not expecting them to have to pay for the township sign, right?
I kind of disagree. I feel like if somebody wants to rename a park, like if they want to rename Fred Allen and we agree, like, why does the township bear that cost? I don't necessarily agree with that. I feel like if they want it renamed, then they should at least have partial ownership in that.
Well, there's one is renamed or the naming of. I don't think we've charged anybody in the past for those costs. I'm just asking because it's not listed in the document. So if we want to pass that
nobody's
along,
really come to us to ask it. We've decided as a township what it's going to be named. But if somebody comes to us, say like Garden of Reflection, like they paid for everything.
that's fine. That's why I brought it up. 'Cause I don't want to be inconsistent or not consistent. Just say, well, this person pays and this one doesn't. So it's just, if that's another hurdle and says you will be responsible for the cost of the signage, that somebody needs to understand that as they go in and put in their application.
So under signage, we can put the cost would be, we could define who bears the cost.
Yeah, I just brought it up because.
Yeah, I disagree. I don't think so. I think township should pay for it. Shouldn't pay for the sign. It's a benefit for the whole township.
I would think that you would put it in that would be something that they'd put in the application of what their intention is. Again, I could see if we're renaming the pool after somebody that from the township and we're choosing to do that, right? And a township resident is coming forward and saying, hey, Grandma Edna, who's always at the pool and everything and, passed away. Like, I think we should name it after her. And like that whole township agrees, then the township can pay for it. But on the flip side, if I'm
the whole township isn't voting. Hold on, time out. We're not putting this out to a vote.
The Board of Supervisors. I meant the Board of Supervisors. I apologize. But on the flip side, if somebody's giving money and says, I'd like to name it this, again, the Board of Supervisors has the ability to vote for that.
Yeah, but they're giving money towards that, and that would be used towards that. Like if somebody just wants to rename it, like I don't feel like the township should bear that cost.
Correct. Right. I'm just saying that it should be option. It should be a function of what they're applying for. I'm applying for the township to name it this. I'm applying for us to have the right to name it this. And if you're applying for the right to name it yourself, you're paying for it.
The township park, the township should pay for it. Or a township piece of park and recreation property, whatever it is. It's silly to make the person pay for it. It makes no sense.
Well, I disagree because somebody could come in and want to rename all the parks and then the township has to go and get new signs.
But they're not going to because the board's not going to let them.
This is the purpose of the document is to tighten things up so that we can decide that. You don't want people to just come in and be like, oh, I want a park named after me.
Well, then you're saying that the park board in the future is going to be totally irresponsible and just let anything happen despite the document or.
I'm just saying, I think we should have it written down so that there's nothing that's ambiguous about it.
Right. So they shouldn't pay for it. The township should pay for it. It's very unambiguous.
No, I disagree. I think if they want to rename something and a family member that they should bear the cost of it. Shouldn't be the township's responsibility.
Monica, would it be safe to say that it maybe at the discretion of the Board of Supervisors how the signage gets paid for?
I think we could do that. I honestly think it'd be a case-by-case basis.
Because you're presenting two different cases. Mike brought up a case, and I think Patricia brought up a separate case. So I think it's maybe just to say at the discretion of the board, who pays for those signs.
Yeah, if it's one sign upon entrance versus like a facility that might have multiple signs, so I think somewhere in the document just have some language around that, around expectations, around cost. Since somebody might think, oh, I'm not responsible for anything. If it's a small little plaque, maybe that's within their budget and they can afford it. But if you tell them it's a $5,000 sign, maybe they'll think twice about the nomination process. I think they just need to understand that before they, go through that.
Trish, do you feel comfortable with that?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Are there any more comments or questions?
Is anybody in favor of moving forward with this as a vote tonight?
Now, why don't we see the revised document first, Brody?
Makes sense.
So I'll bring this to the next meeting, hopefully with the whole comprehensive document for either discussion or approval next week. Or not next week, next meeting.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Monica.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Next topic on our agenda is the 9/11 20th anniversary. So there's two parts to this. One is the proposal to recommend to the Board of Supervisors a remembrance committee duties and expectations, and Monica will take you through that, as well as somebody on the board here. If we move forward to the committee, we will need a board member liaison. So we're really looking for a volunteer from our board to sit as a committee member. And so we will also need somebody to volunteer and be approved for that tonight. So open up that file, Monica, but if you want to take the team through the 9/11 committee formation.
Sure. At the end of last year, the Board of Supervisors approved me to start putting together a committee for the 20th anniversary. And thinking about the complexity of 9/11 and, all the people involved, I thought it'd be a great idea to create a duties and expectations of what we're actually looking for, how finances will work, how the committee will be selected, that type of thing. So essentially what you have in front of you is that document. So as we start asking for applications, now in the meantime, I have been talking to some interested parties. So there are some people who are interested in being on the committee. But as we're starting to put that together, we really need to set, they're saying, what am I doing? What are we looking for? What are the goals of this? So that's why I put this document together to make it clear what the expectations are, when the committee will start, when the committee will be done, and what we're looking for. So, if anybody has any questions, concerns, there's one, I don't know, Doug, if you want to do a motion first, it would be up to you.
Yeah, we could do a motion to approve the 9/11 Remembrance Committee duties and expectations document. Does anybody want to make a motion to approve?
Well, it'd have to be recommended to the Board of Supervisors.
Right, recommended to approval to the Board of Supervisors for the 9/11 Remembrance Committee duties and expectations document.
I'll approve it.
Do we have a second?
I'll make a motion.
A second.
Second. Do we have any?
Second.
All right. Do we have any comments?
So from what I read of it, it seemed like for the most part, none of the process will go through the Park and Rec Board. Is that correct? Like, well, anything that we feel that that the committee sort of needs approval for in terms of their process will go directly to like Monica and or Board of Supervisors.
It is written that way. However, if you would prefer it come to the Park Board first, we can change that wording.
I don't know if I necessarily want to. I guess I wanted to point it out to at least see if it bear the discussion. I see benefits to just leaving it as its own little committee. There's going to be enough enough strings people that are going to be pulling at to have Park and Rec just be an additional voice. I personally, I think while I'd like it, I also think it's probably overkill. My personal opinion.
I would tend to agree with that.
I'd like to offer a separate opinion in that, the supervisors have a lot on their plates all the time. And if we could be like the buffer between the committee and them, then I think that's what our role is. Because the park does fall under us. It has historically in the past all run under us.
James, what's the pleasure of the supervisors?
Yeah, I would like to hear that.
I'm okay with you guys being involved in it. I mean, I'm not speaking for the board, but individually, I think that you guys bring value into the piece of it. And as long as, you're willing to put the effort in, I'm more than willing to accept it.
My only question to Monica or the group is that we meet monthly, right? The board of supervisors meets twice a month. So I just don't want us to be an impediment. Like if they need to get things done, make sure that they have, and we could provide timely decision-making, since we only meet once a month, right? So
Well, we could also call separate meetings, like special meetings if we needed to.
we can. And we have somebody who's on the group as a liaison. So I don't know in that role, that person that will sit could be responsible for making sure they come back to the park board to say if any decisions need to be made. But I'm open. I want to make sure that they can move nimbly and they can make decision makings without us keeping them from moving forward. So.
I don't know what the broad supervisor's view would be, but I would think they would probably appreciate a vetting of sorts. If it came through a committee that was endorsing or recommending something that the committee proposed, I think they'd appreciate that. But again, I don't know that for sure. But if James is content to get it, I kind of agree with Trish here. If we could be a sounding board before it goes to the supervisors, I kind of think they would like that.
Yeah, Monica, do you think that it would be advantageous to have this board to give input during that process, or do you think it would be counterproductive? How do you feel on it?
The Doug kind of touched on what I was concerned about. They only have 1 year to put together the whole thing, and the park board does only meet once a month and doesn't meet during the summer all the time. So if everybody's willing to meet to help them to move things forward, I think that'd be fine. But either way, I mean, whatever everybody wants to do, I'm okay with. But
I want to set a reasonable expectation for you guys. I don't want to, say, hey, I'm going to dump this on you guys and, try and get it done. But it has to be within reason. If it's, something that half the members don't feel like they should be involved in, and the other half, and you're going to have trouble getting special meetings together to meet the timeliness of it, then it might be counterproductive.
And James, I mean, look, everybody on this board, I value everybody's opinions, and if everybody is willing to make the commitment that's necessary to meet separately, if we have to, then I'm in favor of it coming in front of the board, because I do think that we all have good opinions and can add value. I just, that was my only call out, is to make sure that we're committed to doing that out, which might be off cycle, outside of our regular meeting cadence.
Okay, so meeting frequency aside, let me ask it a different way. Is there anything that could take place over the course of this year that this committee would get involved in? And since it does take place at a park facility, is there, assuming that's what we're talking about, is the Memorial Park, is there anything that could, if the park board weren't involved, that would come back to be a problem because the park board didn't have insight into what was going on, that we'd have to deal with, as a after the fact kind of reaction versus a proactive reaction?
Well, I think that's why I intended it, and this is, coming from me, have a park board member on the voting committee, so that the park board, then he could come back or she could come back and report to the board what's going on. So you're always in the loop. Either way is fine. I think that this committee will just have to plan accordingly. If they're going to have to run things by the park board, then the board of supervisors, for every decision, they're going to have to plan accordingly.
Well, I'm not suggesting we change the decision-making process. What is the decision-making process now? Do they have to get approval from the supervisors?
Yeah.
So all we're saying is it would go to us to endorse that before it goes to the supervisors.
Yes.
Yeah, the other option I was thinking too, Doug, is just thinking out loud. Would you feel comfortable feeling as kind of like the liaison between Parks and Recs and that other committee as the chair of this committee?
Versus just a voting member, they would be the chair of the committee.
No. Like a voting member, but you're representing the Parks and Recs board.
He's saying you,
committee.
Doug.
No, they're nominating me. Thank you very much.
Well,
So
Doug,
I tried to do that just on the slide, but yeah, you picked
Well,
up.
I mean, it doesn't change whether it's me or it's somebody else on the committee. I mean, there's still one vote. It doesn't change, to Dennis's point or Tricia's point, whether or not. I think anybody on the board here has a pretty good understanding of our purpose and what the intent is. I think it's just a matter of how they can communicate back to us if there's a question, right, Monica?
Well, so having been involved with the dog park, I mean, it's not every time, every time that there was a decision that had to be made wasn't necessarily something that everyone had to formally vote on. It could also be handled in email, like, hey, what do you guys think about this? And everyone weighed in. And, so I don't feel like it's going to be an impediment. I'm just trying to, offer, because if they have to go to the Board of Supervisors for every question, and I know Monica's going to be there to provide guidance, but if we're going to have somebody on the board or, voting, I feel like it should come back to us so that we're aware of things.
If we don't have to have a special meeting and whoever is the board volunteer sits on a committee and comes back and asks for input from us.
Right.
As long as we give it
And
back.
I think that's how most of it's going to be, is they're going to need input or guidance, and it's not necessarily going to be a voting thing. I mean, maybe once in a while it'll be a voting thing, but I think it's more going to be input, like, hey, what do you guys think about this? Can we do that? And, it just makes it easier to go through us than have to, have everything run through.
Yeah, and I just don't want to slow it down. So if that person's a voting member and he's like, I'm not going to vote, I got to go check with the other 4 people. We just have to make sure that we're not, that person who's going to volunteer and sit on that board doesn't feel constrained, I guess.
So
right.
I don't think about what we're saying here. So if the committee, the Park and Rec liaison, were saying they would have this duty to report back to the Park and Rec board to keep us on top of things. And if there were objections to something that was being talked about, the Park and Rec board member or members who had the objection would state that, and there'd be a dialogue around it. So what we're saying is, if you go that way, it puts the onus of that communication on the liaison, versus if you talk about it being more generally that committee has the obligation, the onus would be on the committee. So the Park and Rec board liaison isn't bearing the full brunt of having to, be the one to bring it back. And it doesn't have to be only, you could actually have a standing agenda item on every agenda, which is an update from that committee. You would never be too far off from what was going on.
Right.
And that was similar with the dog park. Each meeting we had an update from the committee, and they were given updates regarding, fundraising status, et cetera. So
I would personally rather see that committee obliged to come back through the Park and Rec periodically, as opposed to just having it all based on the liaison. But that's mine.
so what about if we had them report every meeting, every other meeting, to keep you updated, or as we get closer to the date of the event, more frequently?
Well, you're talking September, right? It's September of what? 20?
Yeah, it's next year.
So there's only 10 meetings, right? So once we have in the new year to get started, they should come every meeting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we already have precedent with the other the sports teams, right? They're like, Noelle's here; she's here every month.
Mm-hmm.
So the representatives, the liaisons from the other organizations come to every meeting for the most part.
So if I understand it correctly, if everybody's aligned, right, Monica, it sounds like the committee would have to come through Park and Rec on our monthly meetings, give the Park and Rec board an update. Obviously, if there's something in the interim, the board liaison could come to us offline. And if the committee needs a special meeting because they have some big decisions that need to be made, we'll accommodate those with special meetings.
Yeah, and if we're off base here, and James goes back to the supervisors, and he kind of fills them in on what we're proposing here, if that's what we do, as you described it, Doug, and they go, no way, we don't want Park and Rec Board involved at all. All right, then so be it. So, but I actually think they'll welcome probably the vetting, but that's really the only caveat I would put on it.
I'll do an update with everybody and at executive and kind of get a feel for where everybody is on it, and then let you guys know. And if it's something that they want to pursue, the board wants to pursue as a whole, then it sounds like you guys have it worked out. How those updates are going to go back and forth.
Monica, how did you envision this working? That this committee would work putting together the program, and then you give them a budget?
Yes.
And then, in July, they would go to the Board of Supervisors and say, this is what we've come up with? Or were they going to all along say, we're doing, these steps?
I think throughout the process, there are different things that would have to be approved, say like their marketing plan, how they plan on spending money, what the plan is for the events for the weekend. There's going to be things periodically that happen along the timeline that they're going to have approved. That's kind of how I envisioned it. As they get closer, if anything, it'd be more of an update, how they're doing with fundraising, that type of thing. But I think approvals will happen probably more early.
Approvals for like spending the money?
How to spend the money, what they plan to do, if they're going to fundraise, how they're going to fundraise, if they need to fundraise at all, marketing, how they plan to market, how they plan to, educate the community, that type of stuff.
Have we talked with the original people who had family members die that day? Are they planning on going to New York for that, or are they planning on being in Lower Makefield? Do we know?
Everybody has different feelings about how they handle this weekend or week. Some people don't want to be near any of it. Some, have a real hard time with the day, the name reading, So I have talked to them, asked, if anybody wanted to be involved, the ones who I talk to regularly. And as I put this together, I plan to do a broader outreach to some of the other family members who want to be involved. But, generally speaking, the people who are involved regularly would like to be involved again.
Mm-hmm. But are they the people who are going to be in Lower Makefield, or are they the people who are going to be down at Ground Zero?
There will be the people that are going to be in Lower Makefield. And that's certainly a question you ask when people are applying. But we expect that a person who is putting this together is going to be around to help implement the event.
Mm-hmm.
Is there maybe like a meeting in the middle on this where sort of like we need to be notified so we can give feedback almost like via email? And then if we sort of get a dump that's so big that enough of us sort of say, my feedback said kind of like to like have a meeting about this, that we, is there a way to sort of be involved but not have to have it slow down the process, without violating Sunshine Act or anything?
Yeah, that's the real trick, is violating the Sunshine Act.
As long as we're not making decisions, right? Like the key is to not make a decision.
Well, Monica, these meetings are going to be televised just like the Park and Recs meetings are.
So long as we're in a COVID world, they would be on the social media like the Park and Rec are. If we're meeting in person, that might be different. It would be just a public meeting. I'm not really sure. That's the another difficult thing is we don't know how this next year will go. So, but that it would be available for viewing.
It seems a little cumbersome to me to, like add another layer. If there were two park and rec board people on the committee, would that give folks a comfort level that
I don't know if that changes anything in terms of, everybody allowing them to come through the board, right? It sounded like everybody was on board with having them report back to the park rec at least once a month and give everybody an update.
Well, if they're giving updates, that's one thing. But if they're coming to us asking for approval, and that's different.
I would think that Monica and whoever similar to how like when we have our meetings, at times like somebody in the group and or Monica says, I think that's probably something that we need to get Board of Supervisor approval from. And I sort of personally, I feel like I would trust any of us who's the liaison and Monica that if the question is like, hey, we're going to allow parking on the grass, or like, hey, we want to put candles along the walkway this year as opposed to flowers, that I kind of trust Monica and whoever the liaison is to say, okay, the flower thing, like we don't have to worry about that, but cars on the grass, I know the Park and Rec Board would want to have feedback on that. And that maybe, I don't disagree with you, Mike. I don't want it to be too cumbersome, and there's a lot of decisions that I don't think I care about, right? But I think I trust the liaison and Monica. I think I trust the liaison and Monica to identify which decisions are big enough that we should be included. And I don't think but just in terms of making decisions, I don't think there's any reason why they shouldn't be a part of the liaison report, though. I do agree with that.
Monica, to Mike's point, did you envision the park board having approval rights anywhere along the way? We're just usually a recommending body. And when I was thinking and talking earlier, it was about taking things that were maybe proposed by this committee, needing approval eventually by the supervisors, but just vetting it through Parks and Rec so that if we anticipated a problem or thought it'd be better positioned some other way, we could have that discussion and spare the supervisors of it before passing it through with an endorsement that we recommend approval. Did you envision us approving anything?
Maybe for large decisions like the budget, because that is part of the Park and Rec budget. So maybe the budget, a fundraising plan, like maybe large decisions we can define and bring them before the park board first to then go before the board of supervisors.
So you just caveat it and say decisions that need approval of the Park and Rec, of the supervisors, can get vetted through Park and Rec first if you want. But there is some value in, at the very least, having updates, I think, because it is park grounds. We all know there's been issues that arise from that affect the facility. So I would hate to be kind of having the park board not in the loop and having something go directly to the supervisors and then it creating an issue that we're kind of having to deal with, in a reactionary mode as opposed to proactive mode.
I would hope that with having somebody on our team sitting as a committee member, that those will be addressed kind of as they meet in their subcommittee. So when they do get to us to review, that they're a little bit more thought out. So they're not there's not some major issues, right, Dennis? So I think having a member on that team, at least my experience from the dog park committee, kind of address some of the things that the board of supervisors kind of would ask questions on, what our Park and Rec group would ask questions on. So hopefully some of those things would be vetted in their subcommittee meetings so that, when they get to us, they'll be, better equipped to explain why they came to a certain decision, right? So if we can least make a motion here. I think we had a motion and then we had some changes, right? So we really, the main change is to have the subcommittee attend and present at each of the Park and Rec board meetings with updates and any key decisions that would need to be vetted through the Park and Rec board.
Remind me, what was the motion?
Motion is to recommend the 9/11 20th anniversary remembrance committee duties and expectations to the Board of Supervisors.
Do we have to change the motion or make an amendment to the motion formally to move forward?
Someone wants to make a motion then with the recommended change, we could go ahead and do that.
I'll do that. I'll make that motion since I think it was my original motion.
All right, so we've got a motion with Trish to recommend the Board of Supervisors 20th anniversary committee duties and expectations with the change to require the subcommittee to meet and present updates at each of the board meetings on a monthly basis.
I second that.
Are we asking that, the whole subcommittee come, or is it, a representative or the chair? Does it have to?
I don't know whether detail. I think it'll depend on availability, and I'm not going to publish as part of that every.
I would say no requirement for the whole committee to come. It could be a representative.
Representative.
No, I wouldn't want the whole committee to come.
We'll leave that up to them as to who needs to be present to present based on availability. All in favor with the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Monica. So the next one is we need to nominate somebody to be the liaison to the anniversary committee. Do we have any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Mike Brody.
I don't know if I'll have time. Monica, do you know what the time commitment's going to be? I really don't think I'm going to have time.
I'm sure that there's going to be a little bit of a time commitment.
It's going to be all over baseball season. I mean, I'm not going to be out of time.
Do we have another nomination?
I can't text her fast enough to find out if she's interested, but I would nominate Trish unless she is totally opposed to it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll do it. I'll be happy to do it. I was involved with it at the beginning, so I'll be happy to do it.
I definitely second that.
Second that. Do we have any other nominations? If none, all in favor of Trish Bunn being nominated to the Remembrance Committee, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Okay. All right, the next agenda item is planning and zoning and the recommendation on recreation land for Prickett Preserve at Edgewood. I'm going to turn this and the recommendation on Pennsylvania American Water Company Oxford Valley Road Booster Pump Station plans. Jim, good evening.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
We can.
Great. As you're aware, the Prickett Preserve at Edgewood project has come in with land development plans. They gave a presentation to the Planning Commission on Monday night, and I'll just run through quickly, if you don't mind, what the current plan is proposed, and we'll show you what we have. And you can make a recommendation on what your preference is for recreation land. Forget how to do this. Oh, here we go. Okay. The project is located on the sort of western side of Stony Hill Road, right near the overpass from 95 where it meets Township Line Road. The project has two components, a commercial component with a Wegmans and a number of other buildings that, as you see on the graphic, is to the left of that main entry road opposite the entrance to the Shady Brook Farm development, or Shady Brook Farm. And on the right side is a residential component. Our ordinance contemplates that all new developments with creating new residential units are required to either provide recreation land or to provide a fee in lieu of the recreation land so that the needs of the community are met for the new residents. The project area where the residential portion is approximately 12 acres in size. The 200 units that they're proposing would require almost 10 acres of recreation land per our ordinance. Obviously, they can't fit that on there. They are proposing some recreational amenities for the residents of the development. They're proposing a small clubhouse, a pool, and a little green area behind the pool, just as the recreation space. And the difference between the cost for that and the cost that they'd have to pay for the recreation fee in lieu of would go into the park fund or capital reserve to improve our existing parks. So I guess the recommendation that the Park and Rec Board would need to make would be whether they'd like the recreation fee in lieu of money, or if they'd like to see more recreation land proposed on this site.
Ian Lou.
Jim, can you explain in the bottom, like in the behind the tree line that's between Stony Hill and Township Line Road, is that space available? That kind of behind the three buildings down in your bottom right?
I think that's runoff.
The stormwater management basin.
Okay, so that's not.
Yeah, it's not conducive to recreation land. And there's also right just above where you see that row of trees above the detention basin near those three units is the old roadbed for Stony Hill Road. Stony Hill Road used to come over the overpass and then cut through behind where those three buildings are. And when they did Township Line Road, they realigned the whole intersection of Stony Hill Road and Township Line Road. And that detention basin was sized partly to address the stormwater runoff from some of that area of the new pavement, and partly just because it was unused land.
So there is, how much then space is that where the 200 units and parking space text is? I mean, how much green space is available really for any small park, small tennis court, small dog park, anything that's, what do you recommend, or what do you see fitting in this development?
I know that they are looking at maybe enhancing the recreational capabilities of this. I think they had mentioned at one time maybe having a small little dog park for the community, just a fenced in area where people can let their dogs run free a little bit. That currently isn't on the plan, but I know they have discussed that. But there's a lot of land on there without losing clusters of buildings. Once you lose clusters of buildings, then the viability of the project sort of gets reduced drastically because you need a certain number of units to support a clubhouse and a pool and to make the whole community work. I know the three residential rental communities we have in Lower Makefield are all somewhat comparable in size. The Yardley Crossing development, formerly Belmondo on River Road near Makefield Park, they have 195 units. The Edge, which used to be called Cornerstone, down off of Township Line Road near Big Oak and the railroad, that has 216 units. And Polo Run, which is down Township Line Road just past Yardley Langhorne, they have 248 units. And all of them have small recreational areas. I know Yardley Crossing, they have a small clubhouse and a pool. The Edge has a clubhouse and a pool. and they converted a tennis court into just sort of a little barbecue picnic area, sort of hardscaped a few years ago. They found that that's more in keeping with what the residents of a community like that desired. And then Polo Run, they have tennis court, pool, clubhouse. And I think they even have a little dog park that they put out there. They basically fenced in an area for people to let their dogs run free.
Hey, Jim, is this a binary decision? Is it either something on this property or nothing, all in lieu of?
No, not necessarily. I mean, if you feel that they should provide more recreation land on this site, that's certainly a recommendation that you can make. If you feel that, anything that they feel is above and beyond what they feel they need for their community, that you'd rather see the Park and Rec fee in lieu of money go to improve our existing facilities or to create new facilities on the land we currently own, that's another recommendation, or just a recommendation to take as much money as you can get.
Well, just personally, to me, it seems nice that they should have something. I would say, well, short of a pool or anything that requires, extensive capital or maintenance costs. But if it's a green space to walk your dog, or maybe a tennis court or something like that, and then I would say then max out if there's something provided in the center there, and then the rest would be fee in lieu, because we have so many other things in the township on other park properties that we haven't been able to do. I would be in favor of getting them started after you give this community a fair small parcel of some sort of recreation.
And selfishly, having a competing dog park would not be beneficial to the township, since we have one and it's a membership. But I know that a lot of complexes, both here and in other parts of the country, I know where my son lives, that most of these newer apartment complexes do have small dog parks to accommodate their residents. They're not big as our sized ones, or they're definitely much smaller. So I would like to see something that's green there, and again would allow, wouldn't be an extensive cost, but would allow more money then to flow back to the township.
Could I offer a suggestion, having worked for a developer prior? Is that, Jim, I'm assuming that they're going to have an HOA here?
Well, it'll be a management company because it's contemplated to be all rental.
Okay, so sometimes when they do these developments, it's sometimes best to leave that area green, give the money to the township, because later down the road, if they feel a need, or if the community decides, hey, we all love to do this, then they can add it at their expense at a later time, and the township still has the fee in lieu money. That would be my preference. Have them leave their green space, and if they want to add something in the future, they can certainly have that opportunity to do that.
One thing to note, the developer for this project has stated that their desire is to build the clubhouse, the pool, and the apartment complex. They feel that that's where they get the most bang for their buck as far as drawing in people who would want to rent. So that's why they currently have proposed the clubhouse and the pool.
Sure, and if you put a casino there too, it would attract more people. But I think there's I don't know. I think we have to be a little bit conscious of putting in something that's going to require a lot of ongoing expense.
Yeah, but it's not our expense. It's the property owner's expense.
This would be, not us. This would be the management company.
Yeah.
So Jim,
just real quick, I just have a question just for clarification. And I think we're confusing a couple of things here. This green space and this pool and this clubhouse, this is not accessible to regular township residents, right?
Correct. This would be for the sole benefit of the residents of this rental community.
Yeah, so we're not talking about a dog park that can be used by other people, other residents. We're not talking about green space that can be used by other residents. All this is strictly amenities that's being offered to people that are renting in this complex.
Correct.
I don't know if that clarifies anything for anybody.
You know, I'm sorry. I thought that the pool and the clubhouse were a given, and I thought we were just talking about that other green space.
Well, yeah, none of it's accessible to anybody except for the residents. Correct.
Yeah. I understood that. I Jim, did you say that they were contemplating putting in the clubhouse, or they are putting in the clubhouse and pool?
They are putting in the clubhouse.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. So it's just, whatever else.
Yeah, I mean, just for clarification, they're looking to maximize the space in order to get the highest possible rents within this area and to make it the most profitable use of the space. So I'm not quite sure where any township parks and recs comes into play on this side at all, Jim.
I think he was looking at like the fee in lieu. Do we want fee in lieu?
So Jim, the amount of space they have dedicated doesn't come up to the 2,200 square feet per dwelling unit. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
So, whatever this comes out to be, this green area, there's a balance due that the developer would have to pay, or if they don't want to pay, then they'd have to come up with another 2,200 square feet per dwelling unit to satisfy the ordinance.
Correct.
So do you know how much it's $4,500 per dwelling unit? Do you know how much that would be if we take the in lieu of?
Without them providing any recreational amenities, it would be $900,000.
Well, no, they're going to provide the pool and they're going to provide this green space and a clubhouse.
Correct. So that's absent anything, it would be $900,000. However, they are providing a clubhouse and the pool, which I have an estimate on the cost for that, but that would significantly reduce that $900,000 down. At the end of the day, the township will get several $100,000 in park and rec fee in lieu of money if we go that route.
Well, that's what I would vote for. I just think that there's, so the township has Parks and Rec, we talked about at the last meeting, has such a need for, more facilities.
Yeah, this is pretty much, in my mind, kind of a no-brainer that you'd like to take as much of the fee as possible. It just, we have land, we haven't had the money available to improve it, and this would help go towards completing some of our last few parks that currently are not finished.
Do we know?
Jim, I think Mike was trying to ask, and if correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but so if they have to provide 2,200 square feet per dwelling unit, how much of that 2,200 square feet per dwelling unit do they fulfill with the clubhouse and the pool? So it's not going to be, we're not going to get 2,200, square feet, but are they providing 1,500 square feet or 1,000 square feet?
We don't have a calculation for that.
Okay.
But Jim thinks it's several $100,000.
So
sounds good to me.
Jim, is this plan already approved by the town?
This is in the early development stages. They made a presentation to the Planning Commission last night. And basically, that was their first presentation. They have review letters from all the township committees and consultants. And before they revised the plans to address those comments, they got the input from the Planning Commission on whether they wanted anything changed or modified with the layout. I don't believe there's anything significant that came out of the meeting from the Planning Commission as far as making major changes to the project, other than to look at a few things and to address the comments from the consultants and committees. They will come back to the Planning Commission after they revise the plans and everyone's had a chance to re-review it. And then they will ask for a recommendation on the plan from the Planning Commission. It'll then go to the Board of Supervisors, who will then vote on the recommendations.
So the land there as it stands now is zoned what?
It's zoned office research. Under the underlying zoning, office research does not generate any park and rec fee in lieu of money. This also has a mixed-use overlay zoning. And in that mixed-use overlay zoning, it's a combination of residential commercial. And so for the commercial portion of the project, that's where they have to pay the park and rec fee.
So none of the land that we're looking at, forget the fact these buildings are being proposed here, but none of the land is currently considered parkland.
Correct.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? Am I on mute or can you hear me?
Sure.
Sorry, okay, I wasn't sure if I have to hit star 6. So essentially, I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. Essentially, if you take the money, then they're going to develop more of the space. And if they develop more of, or if you take the money, they're going to develop more of the space. If you choose not to take the money, then they're going to keep more of that space, green space, but only for apartment complex use, not township use. So you might as well take the money to use to develop something that the township can actually use, not just the apartment complex people. Is that correct?
Pretty much, yeah. And also,
Okay.
yeah, as you lose apartments, then it becomes less desirable, and they could just convert more of that to commercial and just go with residential above commercial. And then you lose almost all park and rec fee in lieu of money because you'd hardly have any number of units. You'd have a much reduced unit count.
So based on the feedback I've heard, it sounds like most people are in favor of taking in lieu of and not recommending any additional green space or park space at Cricket Preserve. And if we want to make a motion then to make that recommendation.
Before anyone makes a motion, Doug, can we have some more discussion, please? I would, this was their initial proposal. It's obviously comfortable for the developer and the management company in that space. I would suggest that we actually push back to see if we can't somehow shrink or maximize the fee in lieu of, by whatever that means, shrinking their recreational space there. So it's still palatable to them, but not necessarily at the level it's currently at, just so we can max the fee in lieu of.
I mean, I don't know how much more you can reduce it. I mean, all they're offering is a clubhouse and a pool. And without either one of those, I think it would be a harder sell in this area. So I don't know how much more you could
Smaller clubhouse,
reduce.
smaller pool.
Jim, maybe you could help out here. The way I read the ordinance is that it's up to the developer to decide how much space they're going to dedicate to the park and rec. It's not up to, the park and rec board. It's up to the developer whether he wants to put the recreation facilities in, or if he just wants to pay the in lieu of fee. Am I reading the ordinance correct?
No, you are correct. Obviously, though, the Park and Rec Board has some input on whether you feel like let's say this was a 200-acre piece of property and it was adjacent to an existing park, and they were proposing just to max that out. The Park and Rec Board could always make the recommendation that you'd like to have recreation land to be dedicated, although they kind of are more in the driver's seat on this, definitely.
Is this more like they're asking as like a courtesy, like, do we accept what they're proposing so we don't push back? That's how I'm reading this presentation. Am I wrong?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Basically, like I said, they're kind of in the driver's seat.
Right.
What they've proposed. And some developers will just try to propose recreation land that the Park and Rec Board would just say, we don't want it at all. This makes no sense. You're trying to throw something that we don't feel is in the best interest of the whole park system. And in that case, you could say, no, we prefer just to take the Park and Rec fee in lieu of. In this case, they're doing sort of a hybrid. They're proposing what they feel is the minimum needed to do their community. And it's still required by the ordinance that the Park and Rec Board provide their input on the proposal. And you could make any recommendation you want. That doesn't mean that they or the Board of Supervisors necessarily has to agree with that, as you're well aware.
So Dennis, outside of us asking them to add space, if we want to maximize the dollars, I think it's pretty much, unless to your point that we can recommend a smaller clubhouse or pool. I don't know if that's in our wheelhouse, nor not do we have the specifications that make for us to make a recommendation that say their pool need to shrink it by 30% or the clubhouse by 30%. But if we say as is, we're acceptable to the current Park and Rec, and we'll take the in lieu of fee.
Yeah, and I don't even know what the options would be, but I don't know if we can go to the developer and just say, hey, we're supportive of this, but we'd like to maximize the fee in lieu of. If that was the objective, would you come up with the same plan, or would you modify it somewhat?
So they want to maximize the probably amenities to their community without having to incur additional costs, right?
I understand. But I'm just saying, if we told them that our objective would be to maximize fee in lieu of, would they still come back with the same proposal?
I think they would. This is based on a similar community they've done over near, I forget where it is, New Britain. And they feel that the sellable features are the clubhouse, the pool. Years ago, they used to try to build really big clubhouses and extensive recreational amenities. I think a lot of those communities have found that the cost to operate and maintain them gets to be burdensome. And over time, they've shrunk the facilities down to what they feel is sort of the right size for a community such as this.
So, Jim, what happens if this developer, this management company struggles filling the apartments and keeping everything in good shape?
Pardon me, can you repeat that?
Yeah, what happens if the management company struggles to fill the apartments regularly enough, and then they can't afford to maintain the clubhouse and pool?
Well, there will be documents on record with the township on how they have to operate and maintain everything in accordance with the approved plan. So they couldn't just say, hey, we're going to wipe this out and throw in another cluster of units because we don't need that anymore. It doesn't work that way.
And are there communities like this in the township now where there are clubhouses and pools, independent clubs and pool houses for those communities only?
Yes, all over the township.
Okay. So I have no more comments.
My only question was, when I'm reading this, it says a minimum of 2,200 square feet of suitable recreation land be provided per dwelling unit. So, why does the cost of the pool and clubhouse factor into how much they would owe us in terms of, the pool, you know what I'm saying? Would it be all just about the square foot area of the pool, clubhouse, and green area? It has nothing to do with their cost of that stuff, right?
That's not the way it's historically been done. When they provide improved amenities and everything, that cost is offset from the fee. The recreation land would be if they were just providing land solely, which is not their intention.
So, Jim, I think just to help maybe Brody's point, or to understand Brody's point, the square footage of the dwelling units times the standard rate gives you a max number. If they spend something to upgrade the land within that area, they deduct it from that total number. And then what's left is the fee in lieu.
Yes.
And a clubhouse.
Reference the recently approved Yardley Preserve project, Aaron Development on Dobrey Road. It's 76 quad units. Out of that, the township will net $267,000 for our park and rec fee after you subtract out the cost of the little bit of amenities that they're doing there. So that's money that's all coming to the township in the next year. And we also have, like, for the Marazzo townhouses where Marazzo's on Sutphen Road, we'll be netting $49,500 from that project too, which should be coming this next year. So it'll actually be a good next year or two for the Park and Rec Capital Reserve Fund.
I'm sorry, I said no more comments, but I did have one more question. So when they build the clubhouse, it would behoove them to make it as nice as possible to attract more residents. Like, what would stop them from putting in gold-plated chairs or something like that to spend all the allocated money for the space and have nothing left over for in lieu of?
I don't think they'll do that. It's just not practical. Like years ago, I remember there was a project in Upper Makefield where they had this beautiful clubhouse and it was huge and magnificent. And then, the people loved it. They all bought in there. And as soon as they took control of the HOA and saw the bills for the operation and maintenance, they were shocked that they were stuck with the bill. And I think the management company, whoever's going to run this, they don't want a white elephant that costs a lot to maintain, repair, replace, all of that stuff. They want something that's a decent size for the community to enjoy, that'll look nice, and provide amenity to the residents without going overboard.
Okay.
Jim, is there a precedent of a clubhouse being considered recreational space?
Yeah, actually, I think that's what our community center is classified as.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, those would be my
that clubhouse has a small gym in it, right? I think they'll have exercise equipment because typically that's something they add as well to the clubhouse is some exercise room.
Yeah, that's typically what they put in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's some sort of activity within the clubhouse, I'm totally cool with it. If that's just a locker room, I don't see how that would add to the recreational in terms of like maximizing our fee in lieu. That would be more towards their benefit than actually a park and rec thing, if that's possible. But otherwise, I don't have an issue with this otherwise.
All right. Do we have any other questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the Prick Preserve at Edgewood preliminary final subdivision land development plan 670.
With somehow we have to work in lieu of, right? Our attraction of.
Oh yeah, with a maximization of fee in lieu.
Do we have a second?
I would second that.
Second. Any other comments? All in favor? Say aye. Show. Any opposed? I am going to, at this point, I have to run to a prior commitment, so Mr. Brody is going to assume the chair, and he will keep this moving along. The next agenda item happens to do with the water company booster pump station plan. So I guess, Jim, you're going to take the group through that. Thank you, everybody, for your input tonight. I will talk to you soon.
Thanks, Doug.
Hey, Doug.
Hey, Doug.
As the first order of business, I will nominate to replace Doug as chair. No, just kidding. All right. So for the next thing, number 2, recommendation on Pennsylvania American Water Company Oxford Valley Road Booster Pump Station plans.
This project is the one that's right behind the 90-foot field on Kiowa. It's basically right in front of where the water tower is. And there you go. So currently it has the entrance road off of Oxford Valley Road. The community center is just to the bottom of the screen, just off the screen. The 90-foot Crayola field is right at the top of the screen on the right. The 70-foot ball field is over to the left. You can see the two batting cages right where that little cursor is. There's an entry driveway that currently exists coming off of Oxford Valley Road, and it cuts across township property by mistake and comes up to the water tower, which is a fenced-in compound. They propose to replace an existing below-ground booster pump station with an above-ground building, basically a big shed, and they're going to realign the driveway that currently cuts across the property. They're going to bring it all onto their property and just put in a couple of little stone turnaround areas so that the vehicles who service the facility can maneuver around. At the Planning Commission the other night, the only discussion or comment that the Planning Commission had was that they thought the width of the entry drive was maybe a little bit wide, and the applicant agreed to reduce the width, but they just need to have enough turning radius to be able to maneuver trucks in and around without going off the road around this little curve at the property. The bike path you see on the plan, they're actually going to pave from the road up to the bike path so that that's all one piece of pavement there. And then from there on out, it'll be stone. The site right where the driveway is, it drops off, I think, about 12 to 13 feet down slope into the ball field. The water company did grant the township an easement for construction in order to have those slopes go onto their property somewhat, so that we could fit that field in a little bit better. And that's basically it in a nutshell. They will be putting in a little stormwater management area near the property line, which they'll be taking down some trees. You can see the wooded area in here just to do that. And they will be replacing trees. And since this is adjacent to a township facility, just wanted to get the Park and Rec Board's input if you have any on the project at all.
Sounds like a good thing for us, Jim. Kind of innocuous, to be honest, but they're just taking the impact to us is they're taking their driveway onto their own property, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Jim, for what sight lines wise, the trees that they're taking down, how is that going to impact sight line? When they painted that awful tan water tower, they took down a ton of trees, opening that up. Are they going to be opening up that view even more? Also, the current driveway, the way the overhang, the growth is there, it sort of serves as a little shelter for that driveway. So, same question there too. Are they going to be removing trees and removing ultimately what is covering what is ultimately an ugly eyesore?
I'm sure the water company, they thought they did a really nice job in the water tower, although I understand a lot of people disagree on that. But they are cutting down some trees because they are required to add some additional stormwater management areas. But with the reduction in the driveway width that was recommended by the Planning Commission and that the applicant has agreed to, hopefully they could shrink that. There's not an awful lot of trees coming down in that area, but there are trees that will be removed. They are required to replace those trees, and obviously those can be planted in an area that somewhat buffers the site somewhat.
Are the trees on their property or our property?
They're on their property.
So we don't really even have anything to do with this, do we? Park and Rec?
No, not really. But like I said, it's a requirement that all subdivision land development plans be looked at by the park board.
Okay. Looks good.
Jim,
Motion to approve.
Jim, with the new pumping station, there's nothing there now.
Correct. It's just below ground pumps. You'll see some above ground pieces of metal that stick up, and that's about it. And those things will be put inside of a shed, similar to what they did over on Creamery and Quarry Road.
That looks really nice, what was done over there. the red building. That looked really nice. So, I mean, that would even kind of obscure the water tower.
Yeah.
So
That's fun. Cool. So do we have a motion to approve?
We need a motion on this, Brody? Can't we just say we reviewed it?
You could just, I would suggest that maybe you just want to say you reviewed it and have no comments.
Great. We reviewed it, and
Mike's. I don't know what Mike was just talking about, but Jim, could you pass along that comment that Mike made to the planning commission so that they could consider what he was suggesting? I know it's there; it's for them to decide, not us. But it sounds like a reasonable comment that he made.
Yes.
Thank you,
Jim. My one question there is, whatever. I'm good. Thank you. Moving on, number 8, liaison report. Noel, are you still on? Monica, do you know who we have on? I see Noel there.
Yeah.
Noel.
Still here.
Hey, Noel.
How are you?
So how are things going with baseball, Noel?
No idea.
Great.
Yeah. Everything is good. We just wrapped up our season. Basically, we have Monica's been chasing me for a user roster report, but I just sent that over today. We had registered in our system just over 1,000 participants from the start of this year to the end. Although 753 of those individuals were folks we had registered that didn't ultimately play because we refunded the spring and fall season. But still, I think the 250 or so is a pretty strong number for the year, and good times were had by all. But we are getting ready to release registration. We certainly wanted to wait until the signs from last week's little event were taken down so that we can put up our signs, the ones that mean something now for 2021, and trying to work through, really what's best, not knowing what could happen at any moment. Hopefully there comes a time when we can stop saying that. So pretty much that's the wrap up to the season. I know that Monica was gracious enough to send over the last minute request we had for approval on the bullpens. That is entirely my fault, as I forgot to ask Monica weeks ago to include that for you all. But basically, we would like to add bullpens on the 50, 70, and 60, 90 fields at Kiola, the bigger baseball fields, similar to the ones that were approved at Fred Allen last year. Currently, when the boys and girls warm up on the larger fields, there really isn't space other than down the right first base and third base lines. So adding the bullpens on the outer side of the fence would alleviate some safety concerns that we have. Yeah, that's great, Monica. Thank you. And overall, just give a more professional feel and look to the complex where it's pretty standard. I don't know how in the original layout of the facility that the bullpens were missed. But as you may remember from the approval of Fred Allen, pretty standard, a little bit of fence on the outside, pile up some dirt to make a mound, but pretty innocuous otherwise. We've also graciously been offered from Pennsbury High School coach Joe Pacey to actually provide the materials and build the ones on the larger 60-90 fields. And then our coaches, led by Matt Curtin, would actually do the ones on the 50-70 field. So we are looking for approval to do this work.
I'll make a motion.
Would somebody want to make a motion so we can open discussion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the bullpens as proposed in the diagram.
I'll second that.
Open up to the board for discussion.
So the funds for this is going to be borne by PAA?
For the 50-70 field, but we have a donation coming in from Pennsbury High School regarding the 60-90 material.
So it's not township or park and rec money. It's
No, we're not. Yeah, not asking for any money, just the approval to do the work, since we'll be amending the existing facilities there.
And how long would it take to do the work?
This weekend, if we could get the approval, they would probably have it done this weekend. Had I gotten this to you all last meeting, they would have had it done 4 weeks ago as well. This is me not sending something when I should have sent it over to you guys. We're also about to do our field maintenance for the winter, where we take down the batting cage nets so that we don't lose fencing again, like we did a couple years ago with the heavy snow. So it really would all be done in conjunction with that.
So Noel, are those bullpens really just a mound, a plate, and a backstop?
Yeah, there's fencing involved too. So at the Fred Allen fields, you'll have the same silver fencing that juts out from the existing fencing that goes around the field. And I was discussing with our Matt Curtin, who's our Vice Commissioner of Administration, this evening too, and noting that if some of the material is of concern, specifically there is some netting noted on here, that just the fencing suffices as well. We're not looking to make it an eyesore or anything along those lines. We're just looking to do something very similar and really alleviate, mostly the safety concern with putting the kids on the field to warm up.
So remind me, are these fields completely enclosed with fencing? I know there's outfield fences, but are there fences along the? Okay. So and how do you get to the bullpen from the inside of the field or the outside of the field?
You would be able to access the bullpen from, you would come out the dugout here on the third base line. The dugout entranceway is in between those bleachers. You can't see where I'm pointing. On the third base line on the 60-90 field, that rectangular spot right on the third base line. Thank you, Monica. You could access the, run down the side of the field here to access the bullpen on the outside of the fences. Yeah. There's also gates at the edge where the where the foul pole would be on either side there.
Yeah.
Right now you see the kids with the helmets, making sure that no balls come as the pitcher is warming up with the coach or the backup catcher.
Yeah, makes sense.
Hey, Noel, can I just ask a question? You said the money's coming from the high school. I don't think it should be reflected on the record that way, because I don't think it's actually coming from the high school itself. It's
from Joe. Yeah, from Joe.
Yeah. Just make that clarification, because the way some of these residents are. We'll be all up in arms that we're using school district money for this, and we're not. It's not coming from the high school.
We are in no way using school district funds or township funds to do any of this work. Yeah.
Noel, just a quick question. What's the surface going to be in these bullpen areas? And will they be wide enough for us to get a mower into them? Is it going to be grass? What are we thinking?
Yes, grass and dirt.
I think I just have a maintenance concern that it's going to add a little bit of maintenance for our guys as far as weed whacking. I'm sorry, I didn't even think about this before until I'm really looking at your picture right now. I just have a maintenance concern that we consult with the staff as far as what's going to be on the ground and how they're going to be able to maintain and get in there and out of there weed whacking and mowing.
So right now on Fred Allen, there's only the fence on the one side. So you're able to access kind of like if you took that the rectangle, you removed one side of the long side of the rectangle. So you're able to access it. You just, from the side, I guess there's no fence there. So we can think about doing it that way. It would make it easier for maintenance, because I'm having a hard time describing that. But at Fred Allen,
envisioning it.
What's that?
I'm having a hard time envisioning it.
We can,
It's almost just like a parallel fence that runs along the first and third base line with no opening or closing at each end is I believe how Fred Allen has it, right? So it's almost
so basically it's just like
creates a set of parallel lines with no backstop at either end, so they can just drive straight through. And if they don't want to go over the mound, well, softball doesn't have a mound, but if they didn't want to go over the mound, they could drive backwards to get back out of there.
Okay.
You'd have to make sure it's wide enough. Respectfully, I think you'd want to make sure it's wide enough for the mower so that you could at least kind of drive in from at least one side, drive down, mow it, and at worst, reverse back out. I'm not saying don't check with staff. I'm just trying to help give the vision of what it would seem like. So essentially, if you think about it, looking at your picture, if you were to imagine down the third baseline on the left edge of the yellow line is a skinny fence. And let's just say, Noel, for purpose of discussion, it's roughly 6 feet wide, right? So that, and then the top of the red line, not where the arrow is, but the other end of it, not the other end, that would be open. So they could drive straight through in between the fence on one side that is now the new fence and the fence on the other side, which is the third baseline fence to the flagpole.
Well, technically speaking, it's that longer edge that is on the side of the parking lot that wouldn't be there. You would have a backstop fence and where the catcher is, and you'd have a fence behind the pitcher as well, because you want to make sure that it would be the larger side would be open, like at Fred Allen. I believe that's how it is. And now I'm questioning myself as I say it, but you really easily can just really get in there. It's about, the direction that the ball is being thrown to ensure the safety of spectators. And then you're putting the pitcher and the catcher in there to ensure the safety of the pitcher and catcher.
Okay.
Oh, I got it. So it's almost like bookends.
Yeah. So the fence, the additional fence with just two pieces, the length of, what is that, 60 feet for the mound, attached to the existing first baseline fence. But we can also go over to Fred Allen tomorrow and, with the approval, we're open to the design of it as well to make it as conducive as possible. So even now that the maintenance folks have cut over there, whatever they, if they would have recommended it different now that they've, maintained those over there, we're certainly open to recommendations.
Okay. Thank you. And also Jim would have to review your plans. So before you go forward, Jim just has to see these and see if there's any approval necessary.
Okay.
Would we still, Jim, do you think if Noel got that to you tomorrow, would you still be able to get that done in time so that they could work on that this weekend? Is that too much to ask? Would that work?
I don't think Jim's on anymore.
Oh, okay. Good talk. Any other questions from the board? Comments, questions?
Not here.
With no other, Kim, you good? Anybody? With no other comments, questions, somebody want to entertain a motion?
A motion to approve.
Second.
Cool. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Cool. Unanimous vote.
Thank you all very much. Our coaches will be very happy to hear the approval.
Thanks, Noel. Thanks for coming on. Hey, Monica, while Noel was talking, is it too late to still make a change to the minutes from last week, a spelling change?
A spelling error, I think that should be fine as long as the spelling doesn't change the nature of the minutes.
No, it's just spelling for the PAA field improvements, NOELLE.
Oh, Noel's name is spelled wrong. Okay.
Oh, geez. It could be Nicole. It doesn't matter.
Well, this was Noel, so I figured.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Like Noel Gallagher?
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Cool. Thanks. Is anybody else on? Any other liaisons on?
I thought there was going to be a liaison for soccer, but I don't see him on. So no.
Okay. Director's report.
Okay, so today I'm going to focus my director's report on the pool opening and the timeline for 2021. I included in your packet a NAT diagram, and I'm going to share it. So, and it's going to be very small on screen, but I also would be glad to put that on the website too. So I'm going to head and share my screen. Okay, so this is not only just what we normally go through in preparation for the year. You can see the timeline starting in December all the way to May. So these are all the things we have to go through on maintenance, administration of registration, marketing, and with the staff. We are planning to do a few things a little differently this year as we plan. Really want to get the community involved with the opening and keep them informed. So we plan to do 2 surveys, one in January, followed by an open forum and information session to get feedback. And then we will do a second survey in April and do kind of a open forum presentation of how things will be. The reason we kind of want to put those open forums 2 times is because we don't know how COVID's going to be over the year. You know, we'll have one winter one to kind of get an initial assessment on how people are feeling and temperature, taking the temperature of people. And the second one is more education purposes, final feedback, that type of thing. So those are really the big things. We really plan to dig in on our marketing campaign this year, a little bit more so than normal, just really for the education piece. But understanding that we don't know where COVID will be at the opening, I can't give you any finite details about what the pool will look like. You know, as a matter of fact, I'm hoping that restrictions will be lifted by then and COVID will be very minimal next summer. So that's my optimism. But if anybody has any questions or would like me to focus in on anything, I'd be glad to discuss that with you today.
Good luck, Monica.
I second that.
So I would be glad to share this. I will put it on the pool website so that people can see kind of what we go through in a year and some of the things that we have to do to get ready. And one thing I didn't share is we were planning to do an open forum also for the staff. So we're going to do something for the staff as well to ask their questions. Anybody who's looking to get a job this summer at the pool or has never had a job at the pool to see what it's about, they can sign in at that time. So those are the big things. And that's really all I have for my director's report today.
Question for you. Is there any degree of contemplation of building some degree of a plan so that if there's a lockdown that took us to, say, no later than this year's, so if we mirrored this year's, consider that as the worst case scenario, is there any degree of, are we trying to come up with plans around like at least the minimum, if that happens, to be ready for that scenario? You know what I mean? Is there any sort of building out plans for different scenarios of start dates for the pool to give us, ideally opportunities to not mirror last year if the world does mirror last year?
Well, if the world does mirror last year, we still plan to open. We did make provisions for it in the budget this year to be backed by the township budget in the event that there are shortfalls. We planned the budget with a 20% shortfall just in case. So we did put some backstops in place so that we would be able to open this year. What exactly it's going to look like, whether there's like registration system or, masking requirements, that's all going to depend on the world. But we are opening this year in some capacity and we have made plans to do so.
Cool. I think that's a great message to always promote.
Yes.
I just add that.
Monica, does the length of these bars in this chart here represent the length of time it takes for each of those steps?
Not necessarily. It's more of a start time than an end time. Some of the messages took a little longer to type out or fit this.
It looks colorful and pretty. I'm just wondering if you're going to post something on a public site, just so to avoid confusion, it might be better off in a list form. Mm-hmm. Just by month, each of the activities with the start date.
Just the start date.
Well, just a list, like, not.
Well, the reason I broke it out is because it's a whole lot. So this is like a good visual. If you want, we do have a list too. But this is just like breaking down the maintenance, admin, marketing. But a lot of things do go over date ranges. So, I mean,
just to avoid confusion, if the length of the bar isn't intended to represent the length of time it takes for that step, maybe it's just then a star on the start date with the text following it. So, I don't know. Not that, I would never look at this and call you about it, but I know how our township works, and there's someone who's going to do that and say, why does it take so long to do the?
Okay. I'll keep that in mind, and I'll see if I can make any adjustments to look and feel of the graphic before I put it out there. Right. I might just send it out to the board for you guys to look at to see if there's anything like that after I fix it.
Do you need any approval on this or anything, Monica? Is there anything, or just you were showing it, wanting to review it and take questions?
I mean, the truth is, it is what it is. This is what it is to open the pool. So, the only thing that maybe could be changed is the community outreach piece. But everything else is what it takes to open the pool.
Yeah.
So that is what it is. But, I really just wanted to share it with you because I think that it is unknown, all of the back end stuff that we have to do and all the maintenance preparation and administrative work we have to do to prepare.
Mission accomplished.
All right. And that's all I have. Does anybody else want an update on anything else? I'd be glad to share. Veterans Day went very well. Very smooth. We did a tree planting at Patterson Farm this week, and we planted 248 trees with 100 volunteers in 3 hours, which was awesome. It was really great. And so those are all the things, that are going on right now. And we're just trying to plan 2021 as best we can, knowing very little. That's the best way we can do.
So, Monica, I do have a question about spotted lanternflies. Mm-hmm. I've been, killing them on my trees. Is there some type of mitigation the township could do to protect their trees in the parks?
We have so many trees that it would be really expensive and very difficult for us to fight it in that way. As a matter of fact, I'd love to have like a spotted lanternfly smashing contest or something. I don't know, invite the public to scrape things off the trees when they see them and they're out in the park. But we discussed many different things that we could do. I've talked to Greg Majewski. I've talked to the Environmental Advisory Committee about these things. And unfortunately, the best thing to do really is to smash them, to catch them wherever you can. So there's, I wish I had a better answer, Mike. But we have so many trees. We have so much green space, and it's very difficult. It would be very difficult for us to cover all the property, all the land, and protect all of our trees. So, I'd be open to hearing ideas.
The state has no mitigation program or plans or anything that you know of at this point to deal with.
Now, there are things that you can do. I mean, you can treat your trees. You can just inspect your vehicles. I talked to people who live in, directors from Montgomery County who really had an infestation. And, there's just not much you can do. And every time, a housing development treats a tree, you're going to see an influx of them come to, our parks. They told me it was my turn. So there wasn't much that they could do either. You know, it really is an unfortunate thing. And if you see them in the parks, if you see any signs of them, you know, scrape them off the trees, smush them when you can. I invite you to get involved. So maybe we could have a lanternfly smashing type event.
Put a bounty on the number of lanternflies.
There you go.
Half a cent a piece.
Right.
Give away Park and Rec T-shirts. I think we have a few of them.
We still do.
See, where we go.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
You're going to go and harvest probably 500,000 of them over at the golf course. They were all over the place this summer.
Yeah. Yeah. And I to be honest, I hate to say this, but I think we're just in the beginning. According to the directors from Montgomery County, we are certainly just in the beginning of the lanternfly, and the best we can do is just try and mitigate, get rid of eggs. You know, just try your best to smash. I know it sounds terrible, but it's the best we can do.
Thanks, Monica. Motion to adjourn. Brody?
I will happily.
Second. I second.
Any discussion? Cool. Thanks, everybody. We'll, I guess the votes are adjourned. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, all.
Bye.
Bye.